Hello, everybody. It is Sunday, the 1st of October. Um, I want to talk about how I see the situation that we're in, how I see ourselves. I want to talk about Sodom and Gomorrah, and really that we are light beings and that we are extremely powerful beings. And the way I see now, this can be worked, and we must work it. I've joined a group on Facebook, and I was having a couple of conversations, and one of them was that this perception that we have now science, we follow the science, and that came into being as an opposition to religion. Yeah, and it never was. There was no battle between religion and science. The way I see it, yeah, what we really want is the knowledge of ourselves, and that is what God or something that wants to rule over us. That is what they're trying to prevent all the time, that we know ourselves. So then religion was already designed to take us away from the knowledge of ourselves, because it puts your focus away from yourself into a heaven, and it used to be on top of a mountain, and then when we got on top of the mountain it was on top of the clouds, and when we got there it was in space, and then once we had the Hubble Space Telescope it is now in another dimension. It doesn't matter, it's always away from yourself. So that's what religion does. It directs your attention away from yourself. So, and I mean, in former times, they could rule us with a rod of iron. That is to say, if somebody were, again, to ask questions, go inside of themselves, they could burn them at the stake, and that put out a good message for everybody else. Don't go there. But as we became more civilized, as we grew up a bit more, burning people at the stake was actually frowned upon, So they had to find a new way that if we start to ask questions, they needed to really direct our curiosity into a certain path, and that was materialistic science. And that is, again, looking outside of ourselves, or no further than skin deep. Yeah, and none of the spooky stuff is allowed. So then they gave our curiosity something to work with. And now that we are rising again, saying this is not quite right, and we're already thinking about transcendence into a higher state, into a greater state of awareness. Now they're trying to sell us technology as a way to that state. Again, it's something that is not you that is doing it. Again, diverting our attention away from the truth. And I'm wondering what they will do if we're not taking that bait. If we persist on looking at ourselves. Now, and here comes Sodom and Gomorrah. Because there's something happened, because people were on that path. Now, pastors will tell you in that story that when Abraham brought these people into Sodom and Gomorrah, and there was a crowd outside saying, bring them out so that we may know them, that they were talking about having sex. Yeah, folks, there was not a crowd outside trying to have sex with 3 men. And it's the same in the story in the Garden of Eden, and I actually heard somebody say that. Actually building a whole group on that concept. And that is that Adam and Eve had sex once they looked at each other. Yeah? And that having sex is extremely sinful, and that it was up to the gods to say who we should have sex with. No. That's not, the word knowing has got several meanings. It's a spectrum of meaning in the Hebrew language, and sex is only one of them. Yeah, knowing on a really deep level, knowing each other, being connected to each other, knowledge of each other on further than skin deep, on an energetic level. Sodom and Gomorrah were spiritual cities, yeah, and they were given to one another. And then when they said bring them out so that we may know them, that is to know their energy, that is to know their essence, maybe even know their intentions. If they'd known their intentions, they might have gotten out themselves. But they were prevented from knowing that. And then the whole point is that that is not according to the will of God, that we should know each other on that level. Because he wants to rule over us. Yeah? And if we're connected to one another, we are strong. And he can't. So that's the whole point why it's sinful in the eyes of God. Now, what are we then actually? Now again, I have an image in my head. It is a model. And that is what we do. We create models. I mean, the Kabbalistic tree of life is a model. You know, you have others, by which we try to explain what it is we are. Whether that model is correct, actually, I think you will find out once you work according to that model. And if it becomes a reality to you, and then there may be other things that you still cannot explain according to your model. So I'm not saying this is it. Definitely not. But it is a point from where to go. So, as I see it, we are these little sparks of light, which to me would constitute the soul. Yeah? That is the light that we are. And we are separate souls. Yeah? We are all an individual light. Now, in this world, and I would say out there as well, energy goes out from your core, and that is the source. And it connects to other sources, and you give and receive from one another. So really you have these little specks of light in a flow of energy going out of it and going into it, and it is really complete chaos if you were to look at it from above. Yeah, there seems to be no rhyme and reason. There's just energy going everywhere. And I think if there was a God in a structure, you know, in which energy flows, everything flows to the one, and then the one gives out to all. Basically, I would think on a need basis or on a need to know basis. Yeah, but the fullness of the knowledge is in the top of the pyramid, and the rest just gets what it needs for the whole thing to function. And of course, it is the top of the pyramid that directs where the whole thing is going. So if they were in that structure and they looked at this earth, at these little specks of light and this whirl of energy going from one to another and everywhere, they would have probably perceived that as complete chaos. Where in fact it is the nature of this place, and there's method in her madness, and I'm coming to that in the end. And there was a law. There always was a law by which this energy flows here. Again, something that was probably too complex for them to see, because the pyramid structure is very straightforward. And it's not terribly complex. So that is how I see ourselves. And then here comes the soul, our soul experience here, the soul can be changed by receiving of the other energies. Only if you let those energies in all the way to the core. It must touch the core, it must touch your soul for your soul to be affected. And for many, this experience here is not that. It is really, we only interact with each other on the surface. For most, it doesn't go in that deep. So then for most, this is not a soul-changing experience. Yeah? The soul does not gain knowledge of others, theoretically maybe, but not true knowing. True knowing is when you feel it, when it has touched your core, then you know. So most of us do not go to the point of knowing, and we do not give. We're trying to get into others, but they prevent. We prevent. For good reason, quite often for good reason. Again, Sodom and Gomorrah, if they were open like that, yeah, then another energy could have really moved something within their community, and so they needed to know what was there. Because this open state, you not only receive, but you're actually extremely vulnerable. That is where you are vulnerable. If you let in the wrong thing, it will hurt you right to the core, and that is your soul. So again, they were quite right to ask, to know those. What it is that we're letting in to this community? What has entered into our community? They were quite right to ask that in Sodom and Gomorrah. So, right. So if that's what we are doing, we are continuously giving to one another, and we're forming a web. And we come to a point where we are actually working that really to the core, right to the core. I have had a vision and a dream, actually 2 dreams and a vision. One concerning just my family, one concerning community, and another, there was even a greater crowd there. So in this house, I saw a wave, a tsunami coming toward this house. And in the end, the water washed over the house. It was like there was a dome, an invisible dome over this house, and the water could not penetrate, but it was washing over it. And those that were under the dome were safe. Again, what was the source of that? I would call it an energetic dome. Yeah. The source of that were those within the dome. Our energy created the dome, and we were safe within it. And in the dream that I had then was in the community, again that same dome was there. Only at that time it was actually a missile attack. Yeah, missiles attacking that community, and again that dome was there, and the missiles hit the dome out there and exploded in mid-air, and it never penetrated to the ground. And there is where we have up our defenses, our truth, the love for each other, creating a dome, a defense. Those that are inside the dome are as one. And that is it, they are as one. They are connected to one another, they are in agreement. that they should not be destroyed, but that they should live in that instance. And that's what is creating the dome. And as man is as one, nothing will be prevented him. And how do we know that? We know it from the horse's mouth, because the Lord God himself said so. Now, here is where our coming into agreement can be a defense against evil. We ward off that which will come up against us. Now, the last dream I had was a bit different, and there is where our energy actually turned into a weapon. In the dream, it took the form of a very dark being that we had created, our energy created a very dark, large being that went up to fight for us against the enemy. But in the dream I knew, and I still know, that that is a very dangerous path. Because once you have created that being, it is extremely hard to control. And it is extremely hard to recall back into your body, so to speak. And if it breaks loose, because to me that was wrath. That was our wrath in that being. And once it breaks loose, it is no longer under control. It will do what it does, what wrath does, and it is destructive. It will destroy. And if it is no longer controlled by you, it will turn against yourself. Anything and everything, because that's what it is what it is. So there is a possibility, but it comes with a very, very big warning, you know. And I mean, we know that in ourselves, that if we go into wrath, into really strong anger, that anger takes over, and then we start lashing out. And more than often, if we're no longer in control, we destroy an awful lot more than we had intended to do. Yeah, we go a lot further than we had intended to do when we were still in a sober state. Things come out of us that, actually, I didn't mean to say that, but it just comes because you've lost control. But there is really knowing ourselves as, and here's, if you say it's just, oh, we're connecting to something, you know, and we're just sitting there in great oneness or whatever. You know, you may believe on the Spirit, but you really are denying the power thereof. And if you say, you know, it is not working in this world, it's not part of this world, you are denying the power thereof. Whereas Jesus clearly showed you the power thereof, that it can change reality. Once we become as one. So, there was another thing on the group chat that I was on, and it said, you know, science cannot explain that because it cannot pinpoint the source of this energy. We are the source. Yeah, and somebody knows that. Science may be not allowed to go there, obviously not allowed to go there. That's exactly the knowledge they don't want out. We are the source of that energy. So, and again, then this is really what Jesus described as the broad way, the way that will lead to destruction. Well, because for those that do not adhere to the heavens, you know, to the one God, they will be destroyed by that one God. As obviously happened in Sodom and Gomorrah. So something to think about. But as I say, they were not aware of the danger, obviously, because they didn't know what was in that house. and I don't know if they could have built a shield if they had been aware of what was in that house, the intention that was in that house. Right. So, really, and there's one thought that I had in all of this. I mean, what I'm talking about when I talk about manifesting beings or creating a shield, this is a physical, creating something physical with our energy. But just on a purely spiritual level, is what I said before. They or anything can only hurt you if you had let it all the way into the core. If you had built a connection that reaches all the way to your soul. And then many Christians, and God demands that. He demands that connection. Yeah? That you give your heart to Him. You open your heart to Him so that His energy can reach you all the way to the core. And if you have done that, then you are in great danger. Because then you can be destroyed. Your soul can be destroyed. Because you have opened that door. But if you close that door, it's your door. It's your heart. It's your soul. Up to you what you let in. There's self-determination. If you close that door, can He touch you? If many of us come together, combine our energy to create something in our defense or other things, give to each other healing or all the other things, can He then prevent? I don't think He can. If He's not part of that energy, He cannot prevent. Nothing can prevent. Because again, you're forming this bubble that you're inside. And nothing can enter into it other than what you allow in. If He has power over you, then it's only because you let that thought to your core. And you can throw it out. So, this is who I think we are. And then, no, let me just say the last bit, and that is the Tovabo, where this flow of energy, the natural flow of energy in this world would look like absolute chaos to something that comes from a really rigid pyramid system. And I said there's method in a madness, and there is, because there is a law. Even in that, if we're naturally ourselves, according to the model that I've just said, there is a law. And there is a knowledge of good and bad that is within us. And then we must absolutely allow ourselves to be ruled over by that knowledge. And that is our conscience. It's not a free-for-all. Yeah? There is a law. And that law is our conscience, and then we are in natural law, not something that is superimposed by some other will. Superimposed because it will make us, it will tell us what is right and wrong, and we're doing according to what is right and wrong, according to a law, according to religion, according to, one thing or another. And we do according to their right and wrong. But what we produce in that way, the outcome that we produce in that way is serving them. That is why the law is there. It will serve God. Whereas the law of our conscience will enable us to have all these connections. We know we are connected to somebody else. We know we can hurt somebody else if that connection goes all the way to the soul, to the core. And as I said before, if you hurt somebody in that state, you will feel it yourself. So in that moment, you will hurt yourself. And if we know that should prevent, we should be prevented from doing that. So that is the law of this world, natural law, and the law that comes out of connections to one another and to everything else. And it serves that everybody shall be saved, or that everybody shall be sustained, that we can give to one another to sustain one another, to become an ecosystem, a spiritual ecosystem. But, okay, how do we go there? The first thing, and the very, very first thing that people need to come into agreement on is that we are the source. Yeah? We are the source, and we are connected to one another. Spirituality is here. It's emanating from us. And I tell you something, our soul is not in heaven. It's the core of what you're doing here. It's here. It's here. Your soul has entered into this world. Again, don't look for it somewhere else. It's right here. Don't look away from yourself. Look into yourself. It's there. And the soul is free when it's out of all of these connections. When they die, that's death. And then it flies off to... But this is not a prison. This is a place where we can give to one another. And if we start from that thought, we are the source, we are here, we are the creators of this world. And if we come into agreement with that, which is a completely different view of what we are and what we're in, and then go from that assumption and see where it will lead us. Again, it's a theory, it's a model that we need to test drive in this world. But then the first step is to come into agreement that that is how it is. We are here. We are spiritual beings. We are the creators. We are the source of what is happening here. And then let's try and go from there if people come into agreement on that. Anyway, I leave it at that for today. And tell me what you think, please. I really would like to have some input. Anyway, I leave it at that, and I'll talk to you again soon. Bye.